So now our main job is to actually go ahead and get the ID of these specific buttons right over here. So how exactly can you go ahead and get the ID of these specific buttons? So if you remember, you might recall that how exactly did we get access to these specific buttons. So if we go to elements right over here and if we click on inspect, as you can see, we have added this ATC class to this particular button right here, and using the same ATC class we actually got access to these particular buttons right here. But now, as we have these ATC classes, we also need to add something to our buttons so that we can identify these buttons ID or the ID of these particular items. So what we essentially want to do is that we want to get the IDs of these particular items, and we somehow need to assign those IDs to these buttons right here. So how exactly can we do that? So in order to understand how we can do that, let's jump into our code right over here. So let's go to our code, and in here if we go to the index.html, here is exactly where we have these buttons right here. So if you notice over here, we can go ahead and assign an ID to these buttons as well. And the simple way to do that is you can simply go ahead and type in product.id, and that ID actually gets associated with the button. So it's as simple as that. I can simply go ahead, I'll create a attribute over here as ID, and I'll assign the product ID in here by simply using the template syntax, and then I can type in product.id. It's actually that simple to do so. So now let's hop back to our browser and let's see what kind of result do we get. So if I hit refresh now, as you can see, this button actually has an ID equal to 1. So now if I actually go ahead, scroll down a little bit, and if I inspect this particular element, as you can see, the button ID for this element is now equal to 2. So now if I keep scrolling and if I check the ID of this button, as you can see, now the button ID is automatically assigned as 4. So that's what we actually wanted. We actually wanted to assign a different ID for these individual buttons so that whenever we click these buttons, we can actually store these IDs. So let's hop back to our code in here. And in here, what we will do is that whenever a particular button is clicked, we will not only say that the button is clicked, but we will also log the ID of that button to the console. So now here, in order to log the button ID to the console, first of all, we'll need to know how exactly can we extract the button's ID. So here, let's write in the code to get the button ID. So I'll go ahead and create a variable. I'll type in var for creating a variable, and I'll name this variable as item_ID. And now, in order to get access to the ID, I can simply type in this dot ID, and this is actually going to give us access to the ID. So this is actually a special keyword in JavaScript which refers to the current object, and for the current object we want to get the object's ID. So now once we have this ID, we'll convert this ID into a string value by using the toString method. So I'll type in toString over here. So once we go ahead and do that, we are pretty much extracted the value for the item ID. Now let's simply log this item ID value onto the console, and let's see what do we get. So I can say item_ID, and we are good to go. So now let's go back to our browser, hit refresh, go to console, and let's click on this particular watch right here. So if I click on this watch, I guess we do have an issue over here. It says console is not a function. Okay, so I actually forgot to add log over here. So once we go ahead, fix that, hit refresh, let's actually click on this button, and as you can see, we got the ID for this particular watch right here, which is 1. So now if I click on this bike and I click on add to cart, as you can see, I got the item value as 3 over here. Now if I click on this laptop bags add to cart, I get the value as 4, which means that now we are actually able to go ahead and get the individual values for these items in here. And that's what exactly we wanted. So in the next lecture, we can go ahead And instead of logging these values into the console, we can simply go ahead and store these specific values inside this particular JSON object. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.